Hi there, I'm Eshaan Mani, Vice President of the iWRITE Youth Club and Editor-in-Chief of the iWriter magazine. Today, I'm so excited to speak with Mr. Frank Cole in our latest installment of the iWRITE exclusive author series. Mr. Cole has written many books, including the Potion Masters trilogy, the Afterlife Academy, and the Hash Brown Winters series. His newest novel and his 12th published book, Champion's Quest: The Die of Destiny, is releasing this August. You can order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, and Books A Million. Mr. Cole has been to more than 250 schools nationwide, presenting to kids about the importance of reading and using your imagination, much like what iWRITE does. You can follow Mr. Cole at Frank Cole Writes on Instagram and at Frank L. Cole on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Mr. Cole.
Hi, hey, thanks for having me, Eshaan. This is exciting. This is like my first official, I think, interview for Champion's Quest, so I'm gonna get it all wrong, I'm sure.
Well, I feel honored that I'm your first interview.
You should, yeah.
So let's get started with, how did you get into writing, and why did you choose to write for a younger audience?
I just loved writing as a kid. It was kind of one of those things that, like a hobby that stuck with me, and when I got older, it wouldn't go away. I mean, I enjoyed video games and everything else like any normal kid. But when we would go to friends' house and they'd be playing video games, and if it wasn't my turn, I'd sneak away and get on the computer and be writing stories. And I just loved doing that. When I was in high school and in junior high and high school, and even in the beginning of college, I was writing much more scary stuff like horror. And then I picked up a copy of, when I got married, I picked up a copy of Harry Potter. And I didn't know the craze. I knew it was big, but I started reading that, and I think like so many different young authors that write for young audiences. Harry Potter was that catalyst that kind of, hey, this is amazing. I want to write something like this, And so that's kind of what's got me going in that direction for middle grade and YA.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Actually, I think a lot of people draw their inspiration from Harry Potter. It's such a cult classic, isn't it?
It's amazing. I reread them recently because I thought, okay, did they still live up to the hype, or were the movies better? They're amazing. They're still my favorite. I read all of them over the past couple of months, and it was so amazing just to read them again. I love those stories so much. So
they have a different charm to them.
Yep.
And so, how has your upbringing in a family of storytellers influenced you?
My family they're super amazing, but they're super weird. And I think it's just the upbringing. I'm from Kentucky, and my dad is from Brooklyn, New York. So Brooklyn, New York, and meets little backwoods Kentucky. I don't know how else you can communicate with unless you use stories. And so we still tell my parents' stories to my kids. My kids tell my parents' stories to other people. It just naturally came to us that, like I said, it's probably the only way we could communicate is through telling stories, because we just we're just different, so I loved it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you've written in a variety of genres: fantasy, adventure, thriller, horror, ghost stories, as you were talking about, and also realistic fiction, sometimes blending more than one into the same piece of writing. And so, which of these genres do you think challenges you the most?
I think it's probably something that I haven't written enough in. It's the realistic fiction that does not have a fantasy element to it. Anytime I have an idea of a story or a character I want to write, my immediate response is, okay, what powers or magic or monsters or demons or ghosts is going to show up in the story? And so it's just what I gravitate towards. That I love the fantastical. And so there are so many amazing books out there that have zero fantastical elements to it. I mean, some of the greatest books ever written are those. And so I think that's would be the most challenging for me, is to write something that relies on the heart and story of the characters alone. I mean, yes, there's some elements of, drama and suspense that can be woven in, but I automatically go to, okay, they have to have potions, and there's going to have to be monsters. And so I think that's the challenge for me, is writing something that doesn't have that in there. And I haven't been able to really do too much of that yet. So
it's kind of like defying your sort of gravitational force. You gravitate towards something, pull yourself back from it, and go in another direction.
Exactly. That's what it is.
And which of these genres do you think you enjoy the most? I mean, you already have said that you kind of gravitate more toward the supernatural and the sort of fantastic.
I love fantasy. I do love scary. I love scary books, scary movies. Halloween is our favorite time. Well, not everyone's favorite time. My wife and my daughter don't love it, but my boys, we love scary movies. We love to be creeped out. I love that feeling of creepiness. I just love it. But I also love writing something that gives hope too. I want hope. And I hate the movies that at the end everyone just dies. I'm like, this was awful. There's no happiness. There's no happiness. I felt terrible. I want something at the end. We triumphed over evil, and that's. But I love the creepy. It's just something that anytime I can put something that makes someone go, "Oh, that kind of freaked me out a little bit." I'm like, okay, I succeeded there.
That's amazing. And so, what's your writing process like? So, are you a plotter, a pantser? How does that go for you?
Oh, Eshaan, I'm a pantser, and it's the worst thing in the world because I write under contract now. So a lot of my books I write on spec. So I'll give them an idea, and they love the idea, and they'll say, "Yes, we want it," and I'll go under contract. And I haven't written very much, and so then I have to write on a schedule and give them updates. And I'm a pantser. I don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, and I'm all over the place in my writing process. I will deadline for book 2 of Champions Quest. It's due in October. And I might get 1 or 2 solid days of writing a week. But when I do write, I'll block out the entire day and write for 10 hours sometimes.
Oh wow.
I have to get my mind into it and wrapped around, and then I can do it. But yeah, I don't recommend my writing process. I was talking to an author recently, and she writes 5 to 6 books a year. I'm lucky to get 1, and it's just who I am. I'm very scatterbrained. My mind's all over the place. I'm like my characters in many ways. I have some of the same anxieties and same stresses and same frustrations that my characters have because that's who I am. So
That's very interesting, and actually, that's a perfect lead in to the next question that I had, which was, how do you craft your characters, and are they, in any way, as you've already kind of mentioned, reflections of yourself?
they really are. I think probably if I had to pick one character in every book that really is me, it's usually a secondary character. It's the comedic relief, the one that doesn't take things as serious, because I think that's how I've always been my whole life. Like Harry Potter is always serious, and Ron Weasley is rarely serious.
Yeah.
And he makes it fun and makes it, and he can get away with it because he's a secondary character. But for example, in Champions Quest, the book that's coming out here soon, the main character deals with anxiety, and he gets these panic attacks, and I do. It was like it really hit close to home, and I wanted to write a character that deals with some of the stuff that I deal with, and in a way, it's very freeing to write something knowing that the character's never going to really overcome that, because I'm 44 years old. And I think really only recently, maybe in the past 10 years, I realized that I deal with this, and so it's just finding ways to cope and finding ways to still have a good life and find success. So yeah, characters are me, and not all of them though. Some of them a villain, I don't see myself in the villain too often. But yeah,
That's very that's kind of, it's poignant. It's a poignant point that you made about how sort of mental health can kind of be a thematic element of people's books, and almost a reflection of oneself in some characters.
it really is, and it's very therapeutic in many ways to write, and so yeah, I deal with this, and so does my character, and maybe I can find ways that he can overcome it, and maybe I can use it myself. I don't know.
That's very, very interesting, and that's possible. It's possible, huh?
It is possible. It really is.
So how do you create a believable and immersive world in your books? Like, do you have any tips for us budding authors?
Yeah. So a lot of my books so Champions Quest is the first time I've ever written something that takes place in another world where it's like a grassroots creation. I'm creating the world, the map, the monsters, the all that structure I'm creating from the ground up. Most of my books, like Potion Masters, Afterlife Academy, World's Greatest Adventure Machine, all those are based in our world, and there's just like the merging of the fantastical and the realistic. So that's easier. I mean, it's not easy. It's all hard. It's all a little bit of challenge, but that's easier for me because I don't have to create everything. This kid lives in a neighborhood and he goes to school like anyone else. It just so happens at night he has a lab in his basement and he makes potions that can turn you invisible and blow things up and there's a whole secret society of potion masters. That's where Potion Masters comes in.
Mhm.
Champions Quest. I kind of I play role-playing games. I love D&D. To me, after playing role-playing games, every other game seems lacking. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're playing this game, we're playing this card game. Okay, well, what's at stake? What's the story behind the game? Well, there's no story. We're just throwing cards on the table. I don't want to play that. I want to, what happens if I fail? What weapons do I get? And so I use Dungeons and Dragons as a basis of creating a map and creating creatures and finding similarities. And so find something that you like and then do some research. Potion Masters was awesome for me. Finding out, the potions are all made up, but they're real ingredients, the real things that you could find in the world. And I would find places where these ingredients could come from. And that's how I would name the potion. And I would find rare and bizarre things that are actually in existence. And I would incorporate it and that would become the potion. And that to me with the research was so much fun when I said, I want to create something that can do this. What country could I go to in the world and find a rare animal or rare herb and use that? And that was a lot of fun just doing that. So
that shows the research can be fun, and like kind of finding out information can be fun.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is the toughest part of the publishing process for you?
When the book is coming out, it's like you rip your heart out. You're like letting everyone read it, and you're hoping people find it and people enjoy it. And then there's a lot of marketing that goes into it. You've got to really pound the pavement and put yourself out there and do interviews and talk to and go to schools. And I love that though. I really enjoy visiting and talking to kids and going to schools. But it's a lot of work because there are millions of books. And if you want your book to be, and every book, I would say almost every book that's on the shelf is a good book and deserves to be there. And so how are you going to make your book stand out and make people find it? So that's hard. And so you got to find ways to get creative and draw attention to your writing.
I actually want to touch on what the point you made about going to schools, because I know you also have a passion for spreading the love of using your imagination and reading and writing. And so tell me more about that. When did you sort of start your career for advocacy for reading and writing?
So it was with my very first Hash Brown Winners book. I was brand new to the publishing world. I'd gotten the contract. I had no idea what to expect. And it was a smaller publisher that did it. And so they came up with the idea of putting me on a tour to like 40 schools locally where I lived. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know what that even looks like. And I'm sure my first presentations I did were just awful. I didn't know what I was talking about. I was just bumbling. But then all of a sudden I started getting like emails or letters of kids and parents that would say, my kid doesn't enjoy reading, but you came to the school and now they love reading your books or they read other books. And I'm like, wow, that kind of gives me new meaning for what I do. It's not just for me anymore. It's like, I can put a book out there that someone can pick up when they're having a bad day, dive into it and escape. And now I live for it. And it's been tough with COVID, not being able to visit schools as much. I used to go quite a few schools. I've been to Texas. You're in Houston, right? Down. So I haven't been to Houston. I've been to San Antonio. I've been to Dallas. I've been to upper Fort Worth area, visiting schools out there. I need to get down to Houston. That's a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, you need to make it down.
Make it happen.
It's your destination.
Yeah.
That's amazing though. And I think definitely one of the most rewarding parts of being an author is having kids say, hey, I read your work and now, it's kind of lended me a new passion for reading.
Absolutely. That's when I heard that, and I've had a bit, and it just changes you. You're like, so when you have those bad days and you don't sell enough books and you get a bad review or whatever, because that's going to happen, you say, this is why I write. I love it, but also there are people that love it too, and so and it can help them.
I love that. That's a beautiful note for us to transition on, actually. And I wanted to ask, what do you hope that readers take away from this series, and maybe coming away from it, what do you hope the message they take away?
Oh, so for Champions Quest, you know, I love. I mean, of course, I love this story. I love this story. I've been immersed in it for so long, but I love that there's these four main characters, and they're all unique. They come from different backgrounds. They come from different cultures. And they have different struggles and hardships that they're dealing with, and they don't know what they're doing. And they get stuck in. It's like Jumanji, right? When Jumanji starts, they don't know they're in the game. Same thing. It's kind of, they get sucked into this game, and it doesn't take very long for them to realize that that's not normal. They're in a different spot, but they have to figure out the rules of the game and learn from each other. And they actually really do grow. At first, they could tear each other apart because they just can't get along. And by the end, it's like they're a family. And I think that's so, we can learn so much like that as a society. Is like, we don't have to all be we don't all have to have the same goals. And the main goal is that you're human, and we're trying to be, we're trying to coexist and be happy. And I loved, and it came with a writing process, of editing. But my publisher, my main editor, kind of said it to me. It's like, I love how these characters become a family when it made no sense for them to be a family to begin with. It's like they don't like each other. Maybe a couple of them like each other, but they're not on the same path. And at the end, they're a family, and they work together, and they have to utilize each other's strengths. There's no way they could defeat the monster they have to go up. There's no way they could survive this quest without each other. And that's how critical it is. And I love that. I love the monsters too. I love creating, having creatures and maybe doing a different spin on some creatures that we're familiar with. I'm doing that in the book too now. I'm creating creatures that you might recognize. You'll see them and you're like, oh, I know what that is. And then it's not what you think, and I think that's fun, flipping things on its end a little bit. So
very nice. And I think I love the note about, sort of, we all have one common human mission, right? Like we're all human. We have one thing that unites us. And I guess we're all one big family, right? All, whatever, 7 billion of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. 7 billion brothers and sisters out there, or even more now. I'm sure what the count is, but yeah, it's the human journey, right? We're all human. We're all journeying for something and striving for something. And this book is not going to solve anything like that. It's going to be a fun escape, but a little bit of it shows that it doesn't matter if we're better when we work together. We're better when we use our strengths, because each of them have a different talent that their character has in the game. And they don't understand what that is until later on, and they have to use that in conjunction with the others to win. And so I think that gives us a little glimpse. I'm not here saying I'm an amazing writer that my book will change your mind on everything that's out there. No. You'll have fun reading it. You'll really enjoy it. You might even learn a thing or two about role-playing games, even though you don't have to ever have played role-playing games before, because the characters don't even know what they're doing and they learn it as they go. But I think that's the main thing. It's about these characters. I love writing characters that are real, that are struggling with different challenges, and they find a way to cope and maybe even succeed. So that's kind of what I hope will come out from this book.
That's beautiful. That's great. All right. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Mr. Cole. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, Eshaan, that was awesome. You're very good at what you do. It was a very, I didn't feel pressure. I felt, man, this is a great interview. I could just talk all day. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Champions Quest: The Die of Destiny releases in August of 2021. Go check it out. I'm Eshaan Mani, Vice President of the iWRITE Youth Club and Editor-in-Chief of the iWriter magazine, signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on the cool things that the Youth Club is up to. Thanks so much for watching once again. Bye!